Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. All past shows are available in podcast form. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments. Hit us up at dj@artistfirst.com. And now here they are. We call them the wise ones, Michael and Margaret Lines.
Yep, that's us. the wise ones. And tonight we're going to be the human ones.
That's true.
You ask why. I can hear you from here. Well, we'll explain. But actually tonight we gotta go with the beat. We gotta get with the rhythm. We gotta tap our toes and sing along and hum along, because really one of the things that makes us uniquely human, besides language, is music.
Right. And
there is an element of rhythm in all of our lives. In fact, if you were to take away music, it would be like taking away the air that you breathe. Or I think it's one of those things that we almost, like a fish in water doesn't realize that it's swimming. We almost don't realize how much music there is in really almost every moment of our lives, and how much we depend on that rhythm. And it's also sort of unnoticed in Margaret, in how uniquely human it is to communicate with music and with rhythm. I mean, if you want to find the basic beat of a crowd, you just start putting a song into it, and all of a sudden it goes from being a mob to being a group, and a connectedness that comes within that group. You can see it in any concert. You can see it in any musical performance. The audience becomes enraptured, and they become like one entity that's feeling the feelings of all. Before the concert starts, everyone's milling around and talking and has a million things on their mind and all the stuff that's going on. And then the first bars of whatever it is, and it can be anything from classical to acid rock and everything in between, and everyone joins that crowd. And you don't have to physically be there. You can be watching it, from 1,000 miles away or 1,000,000 miles away, and you're as one with that crowd. You can see what those folks on TV are feeling, and feel that you're connected to them and to the artist, through the experience of the music. So it goes really, it's a really visceral human thing. And I think we can see from prehistory some of the earliest artifacts that have been found in let's say, either the Denisovan, one of those guys, Neanderthal, Denisovan, and some of the other early human cultures, is musical instruments. They find places where people drew on the walls. They find things that they made with their hands, and they find things that were obviously made to make music. Bone flutes that are 70 or 80 or 100,000 years old. That means that they weren't something unique. They were something so culturally human that they were ubiquitous enough to survive 100,000 years. What the artifacts you find from animals are their bones. Well, the artifacts you find from humans are their bones and their tools and their art and their music, and in some ways their language, because those things together are part of the human language, whether it's a spoken language or a language of music and beat and rhythm.
Well, we were listening to an article where they were discussing how when you have a rhythm, in other words, it just starts with a couple of beats, but if it continues, and then suddenly you have a continuous even beat, it begins to be turned into music by the brain.
By the brain.
And it was very interesting because what you were talking about when you have a crowd that's just sort of there and then suddenly there becomes music or there is a beat that starts. Everybody focuses in on that. You're not thinking of anything else. The focus comes towards what you are hearing at that point, and or what you are seeing and how it all incorporates. But that unifies human to human at that point. You are sharing in this experience of music, whatever the frequency of music is, the style of music, the tenor, but it's something that ties humanity together. And it is something that you don't necessarily need the words to understand what's being communicated.
No.
You know, it speaks on a very different level than the mental, this word means this image or this concept.
Right. In that same article, they were talking about, some of the ways that different cultures have used, different tones to express emotion. And you say, well, okay, then there's not a universal music, and of course there isn't. Music is part of culture, but the universal part is that no matter what, when you find humans, you find music. And you're right. We're as hardwired to respond to a beat as we are to respond to a face.
Right.
One of the first things that you can get a child's, an infant's attention with is a face or music. This idea of engaging someone on a non-verbal, it's not a something you have to teach them.
Right.
You have to teach people how to speak language. So the ability to speak is innate, but the language itself has to be taught. Well, you don't have to teach someone music for them to listen and appreciate it and feel what's being taught. You don't in the same way that language evolves out of the ability to both understand and produce sounds that mean something. I think music has a root there too. I think I would postulate, and I'm not sure that this would be borne up necessarily, but I would say that it's very likely that the roots of language and music are very close to each other in the brain. And I'm not sure which one came first. It would almost seem to be that the music, the rhythm, the beat, and the fact that you can then therefore unify a group through the beat, through the music of this repetitive sound, is the first part of language. I mean, what is language except the music of thought, in essence?
And you have a tendency, even when you don't understand what's being said, you pick up on the cadence that's being expressed, and that's almost primal. What it brings to mind is when one of our kids they were like 12 months old at the time, but visiting Grandma's house, and she had the washing machine going, and he was just standing there, and he could hear that chum 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 chum. The next thing you see is him rocking in time to the chum chum.
Right.
And they all did that. It's like the beat was there. At 12 months, he was beginning language, but he didn't even have to say a word. He just stood there and was like listening intently to it. The response is an internal response. To verbalize it, you're bringing it out of the body reaction phase, where it is moving in expression in time with the timing it's hearing. It's something that's really amazing when you think about how the physical body can interpret on its own a certain rhythm that's going on. And I think that's also linked to the fact that we are bipedal. That running, and when a runner gets into their own stride, there's a rhythm to that.
Oh yeah, and there's some efficiency to it. I would go back even further, and you said at 12 months certainly, but I think when if you want to evoke a response from even an infant that's only a few hours or a few days old, you sing to them, and they can feel that music immediately. You can evoke that a happy reaction by hearing a music and then looking at a child who has no words, no other ability to, but you can see that they're hearing what you're hearing, and because there's the two eyes look at each other, and the brains are in sync because they're both listening to the same music, and music because of the way the brain processes it is a global process. It brings your whole brain into a certain harmony. You have to use a lot, if not all of your brain at the same time to listen and process music.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, I think what you end up is that with all the brains that are in the room that are listening are suddenly synced to the music. It's not identical, but you can see when that first crescendo rises up and somebody's looking at someone else, and you can feel and see that they're hearing and feeling what you're, and it instantly builds, I am you, you are me kind of bond. It breaks down the artificial barriers that
Mm-hmm.
we kind of build up around us, all the boxes we build up around us. If you want to take a group and unify them, you put them in a room, and then you play music like an elevator.
Oh my.
You listen to a rip off of
The Girl from Ipanema.
The Girl from, exactly. You listen to a Muzak version of The Girl from Ipanema, and you're instantly unified with these people in hatred of this tiny box. Well, but if you want to excite a crowd, you can use music. If you want to calm a crowd, you can use music. You reach down below the brain's kind of I, and think, and you get right down into the heart, and you get right down into the soul of who the person is with music.
Yeah, the purvey. The brain's purvey is given up. It's interesting because it brings back the when you're doing healing or healing energies, toning has always been used, where there's a certain combinations of notes that are reverberating. It's like the singing Tibetan bowls. Yeah. They've been made to, most people say, well, it's 3 notes. When you hit the bowl, there's 3 notes that usually come out. But they've actually been tuned, especially the ancient ones, the ancient bowls, when they were handmade. They're made out of, 7 different metals.
Mm-hmm.
And when they are struck, there are actually 7 different tones that come out of it and ring from it. So certain bowls are, they pick the different notes, and some of them are grounding bowls. We call them grounding bowls. They basically bring you right to the base of the spine. You're seated there, and you when you hear that reverberation, it just feels like the whole earth is reverberating with you. Suddenly, your whole body is ringing along with what you are hearing, and the space in the room fills, and it feels like the building is filled with this tone, and you are grounded. You're nowhere else but grounded. There's other tones that help break through mental
blocks.
Right. Where you keep thinking, habitually thinking of something, and they strike the bowl, and it shatters the thought. All you hear is the sound, the pure sound of that bowl coming through. So those bowls have always been used in helping the energy bodies of a human being and bringing a group together that is a combination of using these tones. So they start out with a more it's almost like a shattering sound or a shattering. They're breaking through all the noise of the brain that's going on, and suddenly you're just hearing the tone. Then they bring you into ground, and the ground tones. And then once you're there, then they start raising up your internal consciousness state. It's the idea is to align not just your energy bodies, but also your chakras. And when all that is together, there is an incredible peace that you're supposed to abide in, and that allows for the healing of the physical body as well as the soul itself. So that culture has tapped into the acknowledgement of a human being more than just the physical. It's understanding that the physical body will align to that base tone. But it's also understanding that you have that emotional body that needs to ride through its own blockages, and the mental body that needs to shatter through its need for control, and your ego that needs to control. And then allow for your connection not just with the earth energies, but with divine energies. And that which is who you truly are. That it's all preparatory to allow the touch of your greater to come in. And then finally, it's opening up so that you are capable of receiving that high pure energy without, because when that hits when you've got blocks, those blocks can actually start burning you. But seriously, they just
I'm with you.
I've seen it where someone who was not grounded, and it's literally like a regular ground, where the high
the voltage.
And he just started burning. It was very bad.
Well, but I think the central thing there with the Tibetan bowls and with music in general is that it's part of transcendental experiences too. I mean, what that experience is bringing you from ground to the highest, and you can see similar things. You've seen it. I think we've all seen on YouTube when they have these flash mobs. They'll have it'll be standing around in a square or in a mall, and all of a sudden, somebody will just start playing, whatever it is, a cello or a drum beat, and people will just start to look, and then the next person will start. And before you know it, a whole orchestra is singing Handel's Messiah or something, and it takes that mall and turns it into not only a shared experience but a transcendental experience. People are weeping by the end. They're so connected. You can feel the transformation, and even watching it, you're not there, but you can see the people that are being transported from this very mundane, walking through a bus station or an airport or whatever, and then music hits them, and they are no longer walking through a bus station or worried about their bills or whatever it is that was on their mind, and they just are rooted to the spot, concentrated not only internally, completely internal because you're with yourself, but you're with everybody else, and everybody else is with themselves and with you, and you turn this into a human unification. We all of a sudden, everybody in that mall, within earshot, is one giant being, and they're being transported through this beautiful, and it takes amazing talent to do that. But the appreciation of music is innate. It takes no talent whatsoever to be transported by music. It takes amazing talent to be able to do it, to be able to sing or to be able to play an instrument well. And yet, with little children in strollers are just as transported without even understanding what the tenor is singing or what the words are. They're there. So it's so basic and so attractive that everything stops. Everything stops to listen to this, to listen to the music. And similar when you say with the Tibetan bowls or the tingshas, which are the clearing bells, it stops you. It shatters your illusory I, me, boxes, gotta do, and turns you instantly into a being listening to your inner and outer self and connecting up with the greater. Mm-hmm. In a heartbeat, it happens. And that's the amazing, it's magical power of music, because it reaches down into the depths of what makes you human, and that's really our argument here, or our theme for this evening. We put up this really boss quote. I'm not sure it's up on the website, but first of all, let me put in a PSA here. Go look up the quotes of Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay. Yeah, I know. Napoleon Bonaparte, little dictator from Sicily or Corsica, where the hell he was. No, the man was a philosopher. He had some amazing quotes. We looked up a lot. We stumbled into, or I stumbled into them, because we found this amazing quote from him, and it says, "Music is the voice that tells us that the human race is greater than it knows," and that's really true. Music shows us that within ourselves is something which is connected always to the greater, and music breaks down that little I, me barrier, and bam, you're there. And not only are you there, but everybody within hearing is there. And we're all there. The music of the spheres, the endless choir in heaven, whatever it is, it connects you back up.
It allows expression of the soul and allows for what the emotion that's being evoked by the music to be expressed. And it's usually the appreciation of how that emotion has been expressed that makes people just sit up and take notice and say, that was so good.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And the way it's expressed, because the emotions that we have are quite basic to every human being, but we have within us very unique ways of expressing that emotion, and how we express that emotion is what is truly appreciated.
Yeah.
Therefore, that reaches into relationship between people. And that's one of the elements of the intimacy that music can bring into a group.
Also, music has a deep ability to trigger emotion. Couples have a relationship, and oftentimes they'll have what they call their song. But as trite or as corny as that can be, it's more than that, because that set of notes or that song evokes from them a special memory. And it's been shown through many decades of research in neuroscience that people who are really functionally unable to process information can still process music. And it can evoke memories from people who really can't do it any other way. Like smell and a lot of other basic senses, hearing gets right into the depths of the brain. It gets right down into the survival centers of the brain, because, of course, it's very important that you hear something that's going to hurt you or kill you, or that's something that will help you survive. But music goes right into the center of the brain, and literally will evoke memories, visions, smells, touches, tastes. You can, with a single couple of bars of a song that somebody will remember, just transport them to a whole nother place. So it can be an intensely individual experience as well as one which is incredibly common. We can all be there listening to, again, I'll say Handel's Messiah in a mall, but every one of those people, although they're all unified by the song and transported by the beautiful majesty of it, is having maybe a different memory, a different yet similar experience that's internal. So your music is able to, slice right into the core of who you are and evoke amazing emotion and memory, and trigger full. You can with a couple of bars of music be brought back to an intense experience in your life, happy or sad or whatever, and relive it. Relive it when it was not even on your mind, and all of a sudden, on the radio will come up a couple of bars of a song, and you'll be like, bam, you're right there. You're right in that spot. You're singing along like you know all the words, even though you don't. And but it doesn't matter. That's the other thing. Is singing along when you don't know the words. You sing along anyway because the memory and the music are there, and the words matter, but they also, are almost secondary to the feeling that you get from hearing it. You'd love to be able to sing it as well as the singer can, but you can't, or most of us can't. It is a uniquely impersonal experience as well as a uniquely unifying experience.
It is unifying, and you bring your unique experience to that moment, which is part of that weaving that goes on between people and that moment in time and space and the music. So it's truly a uniquely human thing. Animals can perceive different elements of music, but not the broad spectrum of it was not just timing, but it was melody and expression. The brain, when it's listening to music, I think they had put it under
fMRI,
to watch what happens, and it is just an amazing light show that goes on in the brain when it's listening to music. And when they're going through memory recall, it's that frontal lobe that is reliving something, and that lights up. But uniquely, it's a uniquely human experience to be able to encompass this all and participate with the music. You not only make the music using different instruments, but as with symphonies or with any kind of song at all, who's playing what, and when does it come in, and what's the tempo change, and what's the expression at this point. Only humans do that.
Yeah, it's very true. Well, let's tell you what. Let's take a very musical break. You guys, listen to the music of the Spheres or the commercials or one of those two, and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about our humanity.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Devkalion, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel. It's in the blood. Available for a limited time.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is Minette Lauren, author of Race for the Sun. Do you believe in guardian angels? Check out Book 1 of my Soul Watcher series. It can be found on Amazon.com or anywhere fine books are sold. Go to www.minettelauren.com, and you are listening to the Artist First Radio Network.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. Let's get back to the wise ones, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
The human ones. Thank you, Scott. And tonight's show. This is the second half of the second half hour of the Soul of the Everyman, and we've been talking about, in essence, I guess what we've really been talking about is what makes us as us being meaning all of us human. What do we call human? And I think it's something that's coming up more and more because we're living in an age now where the lines are getting blurred, and we have artificial intelligence and self-driving cars and all this other nonsense. And some of it is certainly very primitive, but there's on the horizon, we keep seeing these futurists telling us that in just pick the number of years, 12 years, 20 years, whatever number of years it is, tomorrow, AI is going to be smarter than humans and they're going to be running the world. And everyone is supposed to run around in tight circles. And that may or may not be true, but at the end of the day, a machine really has no way to appreciate music. Machines have done things that are far, right now we've developed machines that are far superior to humans in many, many things. Machines are faster at calculations. Machines are better at playing chess, et cetera, et cetera. But machines are not good at art, and they're not good at music, and they're not good at being humans. Even the best simulations kind of fall into what they call the uncanny valley. It's too long to go into now, but there's a certain level of similarity to a human which is acceptable, and then there's a thing that gets a little too close but not close enough, and people's acceptance of those simulations goes from they're fine, I can deal with them, to like, woo, get away from me, and it sort of creeps people out. And you can see that now in some of the video games where they have these kind of simulated people, and they're starting to simulate, the CG actors and so on. And you can always look at them and kind of get a little creeped out by it because it just isn't quite human enough. And that isn't to say that they won't eventually get that right, so that when you look at a simulated CG actor, you think it's a real person. And they're getting close to that. But that machine simulation will never create something that is art, that will talk to another human being like another human being can. There's something that is beyond the physical or the simulatable or the programmable. Call it a soul, It's one of those words that people use. But call it a divine spark. That is what connects us, all human to human. And it is expressed, or at least it is seen in music and in language. I mean, we were talking about some of the ways people connect. I mean, there's opera. Now, people make fun of opera, but there is basically spoken or sung language, which will, without understanding what the words are, you can still get the full story from these people, singing at the top of their lungs. But it is a communication which doesn't need the actual syntax and grammar to understand at a very high level. You mentioned before when you're listening to people speak a language that you don't know, but yet if you listen long enough, your brain starts to pick out meaning. It understands what they're doing or trying to do or talking about, and then it just starts to say, well, that must mean this, and those words must go together and mean that. And your brain bump, which understands how to pick out language, first starts out with a music bump, which is picking out cadence and rhythm of sounds and how, if they're going fast or slow or high or low. And that part of language is the music of language. That's part of opera or part of song. And then from there you go into, very, very fine distinctions, and language can get to be where that if you do a p versus a b, you're doing it wrong, and people make fun of you because you have an accent that's a funny accent. But the beginning of learning language is having that ear for just the rhythm of the sounds.
Well, it brings to mind rap music, when they're doing the exact same thing, and that's mostly based on a rhythm.
Yeah.
As opposed to, and sometimes you can't pick up exactly what they're saying, but you can feel the emotion that's behind it.
Right. Or bagpipes. Same thing. Or any kind of Scottish music at all.
Oh my.
and now the Scots are going to be calling. Just don't even bother. Go ahead.
But if you think about how it unifies humanity.
Yeah.
One other point that was brought up by that article was the fact that certain tones that are being used in a culture, if you just hear it, you're thinking, oh, it's supposed to be relaxing. But it was used specifically for ceremony at a funeral.
Right.
And so someone in that culture hearing that tone realizes, oh, wait a minute. This is because this is going on. There's a parting of a soul.
Right.
And that, yes, it is relaxing, but it's connected to this particular way of handling a death.
Mm-hmm.
So culture is also intrinsically tied to music, and being able to make that connection, understand the foundation of it, as well as you're looking from the outside, a different viewpoint, and just listening to what's being played and how just listening to that affects you. What was common was, yes, this is like very calming, but the purpose was different.
Yeah. I'm reminded, too, of oftentimes if you hear somebody speaking a foreign language and you're a non-native speaker, you don't understand the language, you'll think, well, that person's angry. like German. You think that person wants to take over the world because it's German. But it has nothing to do with that. It really has to do with our ear, let's say, as an English speaker would say, this rapid cadence at this tone means I'm angry. But that rapid cadence at that tone might mean nothing more than just normal conversation in Chinese. Yeah. Oftentimes Chinese sounds angry to a Western ear, but it's just the inflections, the plosives, whatever the words are, how they're inflected is sort of strident perhaps to the Western ear. Maybe or even just across a culture where everyone speaks the same language, people from one part of the country, for argument's sake, where we are in the eastern part of the country, they say, "Oh, you're New Yorkers," because that it's the way we speak, and we speak faster than another part, or slower in some ways than another part, and so you tend to assign default meanings based on what you assume a particular cadence means. So it is specific to your experience what a series of sounds might mean, but meaning is the secondary effect of these sounds. The primary effect of the sounds is that they attract your interest. They evoke a response, and that that there's something else behind them. That's language. You're initially attracted to language because there's a purpose here. There's something going on, and you want to tease the meaning out of it. Mm-hmm. Music is below even that, and that's why I say I think my theory is that music came first. Chicken, egg, music. First was the music, then the chicken, then the egg. Or first the music, then the egg, then the chicken. Well, one of those. First there was music, and then there was poultry. But music came first because at the music level, the meaning is deeper. It's really at as you said, repeated sounds to the human brain become music. Drums are probably one of the very first expressions that we use to communicate and to unify. When you see any type of ceremony, there's always a drum beat. There's always something, like a heartbeat of the music at the base. What the bass player or the drummer is the foundation of almost every song. They're the persons who are keeping the time of the music. Then you put all the other stuff on top. But if you don't have that bass or you don't have that drummer, there's something huge missing. Mm-hmm. The rest of the music can wander all over the place if it doesn't have that central beat. Now, there's a central beat that's common to all of us, our heartbeat. There's music in the body too. When people meditate, they're looking for the music within. They go and concentrate on their breath. But it's not just one breath or a bunch of panting. It's rhythmic breath. You're listening to the music of you, and you go internal, and you start to listen to. You get closer and closer to you, to your center, by concentrating on your rhythm, your specific rhythm.
What I'd like to just observe is that as an infant, or even younger than that, in utero, what you're hearing in utero is your mother's heartbeat, as well as her rhythm of breathing and all the other functions of the body that are going on. But that heartbeat, if that's the first thing you become aware of in utero, because if you think about it, all your other senses aren't really in use when you're in utero. Your feeling is exceedingly limited. If maybe you feel your fingers. You're not breathing. And you're not seeing anything either. You're not really tasting, but we don't know.
Yeah.
but hearing. And they have done studies that the baby knows the voice of its mother, and it also knows the voice of anyone else who's been close to it, the voice of the dad and brothers and sisters.
Right. They're listening.
Yes.
At a very early age, long before they could ever have any other external contact. I mean, yes, you could feel pressure, or you could feel movement, kind of gross movement of kind of rolling around in utero, but the omnipresent thing is this do. It must be pretty loud, because you're like right there,
You're right under your.
Not just the heartbeat, but the artery. There's a major artery that goes right by the uterus, right by the womb, and that heartbeat is there 24/7, 365 from the moment you can start hearing, and then there's the other sounds which mix with it. But there's always, like the drummer for the band, there's always the heartbeat in the background. So you learn, probably without ever even knowing it, that life has a beat. And then your own heart is in there, and those two hearts syncopate. They aren't obviously in actual rhythm, because an infant's heart is about 3 or 4 times fast, not 3 times, but at least twice as fast as an adult human's heart. But that syncopation of beats is something else. The other thing that you're basically immersed in from the moment you first become aware of anything.
But that's my point. This is the moment when you suddenly become aware, and they basically theorize, of course, that you are not aware that you and your mother are separate.
No.
You're like one unit as far as you're concerned.
Right. That carries on to like middle adulthood.
Oh my.
Right about 40 or so. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yep.
And when you're beginning, where the tendrils of consciousness come forth, you're hearing a heartbeat. Right, and you're not a fully developed being yet. You're growing, and as you're growing in this warmth, and you probably don't even know there's a difference in temperature.
Nope.
Okay, or pressure, frankly. There's no difference in temperature or pressure. No. But you're hearing a heartbeat. You're hearing the rhythm of a breath and how that changes.
Right. That may be the only changes, right? Yeah.
You're hearing the breath change. You're hearing the words, and you are intimately hearing how the breath and the words interact with one another.
Yes.
It's so deep within that conscious awareness and the beginnings of consciousness that how do I say this? It's almost like when you're out there and suddenly you realize that this is your mother.
Mm.
You know immediately when she's upset about something.
Right.
There's a change in pitch, and there's a change in the way the breath is moving.
Yes.
But you're not aware of the change in heartbeat. That's a constant. But the breath is different. That heartbeat is a anchor, understanding that this is the rhythm of life. That's always there. As long as you have life, the beat continues.
Right. And before you had words or any other thoughts.
Mm-hmm. So that breath becomes something that you focus on, especially as an infant, because everything has to do with breathing in the mouth.
Well, yeah. And again, that carries on into middle adulthood.
Yes.
But
yes, indeed.
And sometimes further. But no, your point is exactly correct, I would say, and exactly. We often just kind of ignore our origins, and we ignore, because it's so unremarkable. It's like, everybody has that. Yes, but these common things are really what bind us together in the physical, at least. Uh, that experience is an experience that everybody on the planet had at one point in their lives. They had the experience of just having a heartbeat and breath sounds as their whole universe.
Right.
And when you bring people back down to that, you know that everybody in the room has that exact same experience. That is now like the water that the fish swims in. You can't escape it. You don't feel it, but it's there. And at the physical level, when you unite people at the breath and the heart, they are just connected. Music is just a half step above that, I think. When you take a crowd of completely disparate people and you unify them with a symphony or with a rap song or whatever it is, they are just together. They are literally dancing and moving together. When you put music on and the crowd gets up and they're milling around and then the music hits and everybody starts dancing in whatever way they can to that rhythm, the crowd becomes one. And then, the music stops and they break again. But as soon as that music comes back on, they're back on the dance floor and they're back moving their bodies in rhythm. Dance is the response of the body to the music that is now unifying the mind. And those who dance well are in essence evoking through their movements everything that's happening inside their minds with the music. And that's why it becomes so incredibly powerful, because your body becomes an expression beyond voice and beyond just listening or even playing, to be moved, literally moved by the music, and witnessing someone being moved by the music, you're moved with them, So dance is another outgrowth, a communication at a visceral level, nonverbal level, that I think you can find in any group of toddlers. You start playing the music, they all start bopping how they can in unison to that music.
It's an automatic response, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
I would love to see if they started playing music, if the baby in utero would start moving.
I'll bet that would happen.
Now we have the technology to be able to do that, but that would be fascinating to see if there is a response to what it's hearing. The other thing that strikes too, because this is all precursor to being born. This is your experience before you're born. And if you just think about it for a minute, you have all these senses that are not being used in utero. In your mother's womb, you don't use sight. You don't use smell. You don't use taste. You have some perception of touch. And I think they've seen when a baby is like trying to almost suckle.
Yeah, suck their thumb.
On their thumb or something. But, and you do hear, but it's like a underwater hearing. But these senses don't really come into play and don't become sharp until you are born. So if you think about that, and it's like, gee, this is the way life unfolds. What happens if we take it where we, in this human form, in this world, you go to the end and there's death, but you're actually being reborn into another realm. What senses are we developing in here that could only be expressed once we cross over? It's just, people talk about, like the third eye and all the other senses that happen when they leave this realm. Well, what happens if this is another womb? The earth itself is another womb. where you're developing into a being that when you were born on the other side, what kind of senses are possible?
That's a great question. And what are we on the other side? Are we humans?
Yes.
Or are we?
Are we like fetal in this world, and then we're born into the heavenly realm, or what's going on?
Here we are at the end of the hour almost, starting a whole new topic.
Oh no!
Well, we're not done yet. Actually, I love that thought. But I think again, coming back to our theme, the uniqueness of the human experience, even if you take out all of everything that we know, that the spiritual part, the uniqueness of the human experience is foundational, I think, with music. And everything grows from that. The rhythm, the basic rhythm of, as you said, that heartbeat rhythm is so, it really is so foundational that everything else grows up from it. So language and dance and all the other expressions of art and humanity, I think, are really coming out of the music of us. And you can see that, what we started the show with, you take away music, and I think you take away humanity in many ways, shapes, or forms. If you really remove music, you remove humanity. Everything else might be there, but then you are an AI, and you are something that could be simulated.
Yeah, that's true. If you take away the human experience of music, what are you left with?
Not much.
Well, it's purely mental, because music also is intrinsic with a lot of the emotions that humans feel. And
I feel sad.
Yes, I think we are at the end of our hour.
We are. This has been The Soul of the Everyman. We're going to leave you with that great question of what will we be after we're gone from here and born into the new place for the next time. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.